I'm well. Get the year off to a good start with CES and now leading into Super Bowl at Allegiant Stadium, where we are, pretty prominently featured due to all the technology that we put in there a couple years ago. So timing's good to connect with you as always.
And we saw that you have some new digital signage news related to the stadium itself. And I didn't have time to get into all the details. Just how big was this project for you?
So it's one of the largest projects we've ever done. The big game, if you will, was in Los Angeles 2 years ago at a stadium that we did all the digital signage for as well. So this is two of the last 3 years. The stadium is that's hosting the game is featuring Samsung technology, but specifically to displays, we have over 2,500 in this particular venue. It was a custom build inside and outside the stadium. There's digital signage everywhere, and then a few other areas, the performance center. So it's for both the players and the team, as well as the fans that are entering, not only for this game, but for all the Raiders home games.
That's awesome. So was it overseen by Allegiant, or I know they have the naming rights? Do they own and operate the stadium?
It was basically done by the Raiders and their team, along with our design experts and our tech people. We have our HQ team on a large build out like this. Our HQ team in Korea is involved because, again, when you're talking custom, it's not, you go to a reseller and order what you need. This is all very unique product. It's not just a screen. It's how it's hung, it's trim, it's electrical. So you're talking about procuring metal. It's a much different business model than monitors and other stuff that we sell and that we've talked to you about before.
And sometimes I do ask folks, just because we're trying to keep pace with all the world developments. Did the supply chain affect that at all? Do you find with the custom jobs that you're still having any issues?
So we have to just be very transparent at the beginning regarding supply chain. In terms of digital signage and technology, electronics in general, we feel like we have the world's best supply chain because for most of the products we sell, consumer and enterprise, we own the process from A to Z. This, though, does require a lot of advanced planning because the lead times are very long on some of these products. They've got to ship usually via vessel. So you start adding that all that together, and you start stacking weeks on top of each other. But generally, unlike maybe putting 100 interactive whiteboards in a local middle school, this is a 2 year project. There's many things that are outside of our scope, like permitting, construction all around the area, like putting in the parking lots and stuff. So anytime a stadium is a new build like this, we generally have a pretty good chance of hitting their timelines because it is so long.
Wow. So, and forgive me if you already mentioned, but like from the conceptualization to the execution, how long was this lead time total?
So I'm estimating here, but I would say between 2 and 3 years from the first sort of design meetings, and this is what the Raiders are seeing in their minds versus putting the last nail on the ground. 3 years, and there's always other things going on, like there's service issues. Our products are the best, but there's times they have an outage or something needs to get cleaned up. So, for example, this week in support of the game, we have service technicians on site to make sure, heaven forbid, something were to go wrong, we've got the right people in place that can get to the control room or get to the backside of the screen and get it up and running right away. We don't offer that sort of support day in, day out at, a baseball field where they have 162 games in a season. But for something like the event coming up on Sunday, we want to make sure we stand behind our products and we have people on the ground to ensure that everything will function properly.
Well, and I have follow-up questions on that, but we have to get to the brass tacks first. Who are you rooting for in the big game?
So I'm not a Chiefs fan, which by default means I'm rooting for the 49ers. I just hope truly, I hope it's a good game, a close game that the 49ers can win in the fourth quarter. But my wife is a Taylor Swift fan, so she's rooting for Kansas City. So there'll be some hostility in my house on Sunday, but that's okay. I usually break it down this way. SoFi Stadium in LA is truly one of a kind. Their overhead screens are just can't really be duplicated. But when you look at Allegiant, I think it is the best example of what signage can do in a stadium that most teams would have the ability to roll out. It's more traditional but super high tech. Everything about the stadium looks custom, and our screens are custom too, both inside and outside. but it's repeatable, I think, across the NFL, whereas SoFi Stadium, not so much. So there's elements that are different in each stadium, like where the teams want the main scoreboard to go. Usually it's in the end zone somewhere. Is there, are there two boards, four boards, one major board? So all of that is truly custom. But then also from a non-customized perspective, there's TVs in all the suites. There's monitors in the back offices. So it's truly a all Samsung product experience in the stadium. But what the fans see are the super fancy boards.
That's huge. And so it sounds like you've really dedicated a lot of time here. Do you think that you're starting to see rumbles of, well, I guess part of the broader trend really is that back in the day, there was, one big name that was doing all the stadium digital signage and so forth. And now I'm seeing it's proliferating. And now there's three, there's a half a dozen, there's a dozen. Do you think it's becoming more democratic, this market? And is there room for real growth for new players?
So my job depends on making it more democratic because the incumbent at a lot of these venues has been strong for a long time, but we are looking at a lot of ways to penetrate their market share and bring the power of the Samsung brand, the broad portfolio of technology, the R&D strength that we have. We truly believe we're the best at all those things. And that's kind of the angle we use when talking to these teams. I will say, just so everybody understands, there are refreshes in stadiums that have been built years ago, like could be 50-year-old stadium, and then there's new builds. Allegiant, because the team moved from California to Las Vegas, was a new build. So you kind of have a blank slate that you work with the team on. In other areas, when you're just refreshing what is already there, that gets a little more complex. A lot of those teams are more likely to stay with the incumbent brand if their experience has been good. So we do lean pretty heavily on the new builds because we think that's where our strengths tie closest to what the stadium is looking for, the team is looking for.
The content is often overlooked and the underlying software is often overlooked because people want to see the shiny new screen, the super high bright, etc. Well, what are you going to put on it? Do you have any guidance on the trends and on what people should be looking for putting in terms of the content, CMS software, and et cetera, for even the long term? Let's say somebody's trying to plan a project for 5 years out and they've got a stadium, they're trying to figure it out. What advice do you have?
Yeah, so selfishly, we're very aggressively pushing our own content management software, not only in stadiums, but in every vertical that we play. We believe we've created something that's simple to use, can be purchased by small, medium businesses through Samsung.com, could be sold as part of a larger deal to a bigger end user. Our future depends on becoming more than just the world's biggest hardware player in technology. We need to kind of expand into software. Our enterprise division is leading that, and that's called Samsung VXT.
Well, listen, you are definitely the sports expert. You know far more than me. I would love to just close with what do you think is one of the coolest parts of the entire installation? I'll get some photos later if I can from your team, but what's one of the coolest parts from the installation? And what do you predict for the coming year and exciting news coming out of your work?
Yeah, so just a couple of fun facts. The total job has 66,000 square feet of video screens. I would say my favorite part of Allegiant, again, I'm a huge fan, and I'm not just saying this because that's where the game is this weekend. I'm a huge fan of the stadium in general. I love that it's black and silver. I think it fits Vegas. It's right off the highway. You can see it from a lot of different angles. They were really creative. They built door/windows in one of the end zones that open up at night if it's cool enough, and you can stand and eat a hot dog and see the Las Vegas Strip. Wow. So they built in some very, very unique and sort of special experiences for the fans. My favorite part, signage wise, is probably the LED on the outside. Not only because it looks, in a city that's lit up more than any other probably in the country, so it matches the look and feel of Las Vegas. But it's also a way for them to, monetize with programmatic advertising, or showcase their upcoming events, be it a Taylor Swift concert, a Foo Fighters concert, whatever, whatever they have coming to the stadium, in the near term. So it's a very unique thing. We've seen some of our other stadiums start to ask questions like, okay, we want signage facing the road or the
Mm.
interstate, because all of this pretty easily can bring in more revenue for the teams, and that's just becoming more important.
Digital
Is
out of home advertising is absolutely central in the growth of digital signage. I'm so glad you brought that up. Some readers are still behind on that. It's a huge
Yeah,
and growing portion.
every major end user that has consumer facing real estate is asking about that now. Airports, even food and beverage, in some of the more prominent locations, they're asking about it. As far as 2024, we're talking to teams across all the major sports leagues. We just completed a build out for the women's soccer league that will kick off. Their season kicks off in like 6 weeks. Kansas City put in the world's first women's soccer venue.
Wow.
So we did a big scoreboard there with them, and that ties nicely to what we're talking about this weekend, because the one of the investors in that sports team is the wife of the quarterback of the Chiefs. So there's some synergy there. And then there are a couple very large NFL stadium projects that are still in the bidding stage. One is probably 6 months ahead of the other. So that's something. Both of those are big things that we're targeting going forward. There's a lot of refreshes going on. A lot of the work we did at Citi Field here in New York for the Mets has drawn eyes from other teams around Major League Baseball, and we're getting a lot of inquiries to see if we can replicate that with other teams on some scale, not necessarily as much as the Mets did. But it is a good time. Teams are investing. It's a bit of an arms race, generally speaking, in sports. These owners have pretty big egos in some cases, and they want the coolest, best stadium, and we're here to support whatever they want to do.